A story of isolation. A story of madness. And a story that rewrote the boundaries of horror. This is the case of Ed Gein, the quiet man who lived among his neighbors, while hiding secrets the world was not prepared to face. The story begins with Plainfield, population just over 600 in the 1950s. Plainfield was the kind of town where church bells marked the hour, where everyone knew each other's name, and where people left their doors unlocked. But beneath the quiet surface, life was difficult. The land was harsh. Work was constant. Homes were isolated by miles of farmland. Isolation wasn't just part of life. It shaped the people who lived there. And none more than Ed Gein. Ed Gein's upbringing was a storm waiting to break. His father, George Gein, was violent when drunk and defeated when sober, a man crushed by alcoholism and poverty. His mother, Augusta, was the opposite, domineering, obsessive, and convinced the outside world was filled with sin. Augusta raised Ed and his older brother Henry with strict moral rules, teaching them that women were corrupt and that she alone could guide them to salvation. Ed worshipped her, feared her, lived for her approval. Meanwhile, she slowly cut him off from the world. No friends. No life outside the farm. No chance to develop his own identity. When Ed's father died, and then Henry died under mysterious circumstances during a brush fire, Ed was left with the only person he had ever depended on, his mother. When Augusta died in 1945, Ed's world shattered. After Augusta's death, Ed sealed the rooms she had used, locking them away like a shrine. Her bedroom, the living room, the parlor, all preserved, untouched, frozen in time. Meanwhile, the rest of the farmhouse descended into chaos. Trash, old newspapers, rotting items, junk stacked floor to ceiling. Ed lived in a tiny corner of the house, an empty room, bare mattress, no heat. Neighbors thought he was odd, but harmless. No one imagined what was truly happening inside those walls. Despite the state of his home, Ed Gein was surprisingly social. He babysat children, ate meals with neighbors, did handyman jobs around town, helped farmers repair equipment. He was polite, quiet, always smiling. But he also made strange comments. Jokes about death. Odd stories about experiments. And unusual questions about the female anatomy. People brushed it off as eccentricity. After all, Ed was Ed. But behind closed doors, Ed Gein's mind was unraveling. Throughout the early 1950s, Plainfield was shaken by a series of unsettling events. Grave sites disturbed, missing tools, rumors of a prowler, dogs barking at the Gein property, children reporting Ed telling strange stories, but nothing stuck. Nothing pointed towards a crime. Not yet. December 1954. Mary Hogan, the bold and outspoken owner of a local tavern, vanished. Her tavern was left in disarray, a sign of struggle, but no clear evidence. Mary was gone. Police had no clues, except one bizarre, chilling comment. Ed Gein, while joking with townsfolk, said, "Mary's not missing. She's at my place." People laughed. It was just Ed being weird. They had no idea he was telling the truth. Ed Gein became obsessed with anatomy books, medical journals, female body structure, tales of headhunters and cannibal tribes, certain pulp magazines, ritualistic stories involving death and the afterlife. He was fascinated by transformation, costumes, and becoming someone else. He later told investigators he wanted to become his mother, or at least create a version of her to keep close. This obsession fueled everything that came next. November 16, 1957. Bernice Worden, owner of Plainfield's hardware store, vanished without a trace. Her register tape showed the final sale, antifreeze, sold to Ed Gein. That was enough for Sheriff Art Schley to investigate. When officers went to the Gein farm, they found no one home. But Ed was spotted later at a grocery store and arrested without incident. What came next was one of the most shocking discoveries in American history. Investigators entered Gein's home through a side door. Inside, the stench was overwhelming: rot, damp, decay. The house was pitch black. No running water. No heat. As officers pushed deeper into the clutter, they stumbled onto something unimaginable. The details are well known and disturbing, and while we will not show them or describe them graphically, what police found revealed: Ed Gein had been robbing graves, collecting human remains, creating objects from them, and attempting to craft a second version of his mother out of the deceased. It was a farmhouse of horrors, unlike anything investigators had ever seen. Ed confessed calmly, almost cheerfully. He said he visited cemeteries at night, in a trance-like state, digging up recently buried women who looked like his mother. He insisted he didn't remember everything. He described himself as half asleep during the acts. Ed Gein wasn't committing crimes for pleasure, but for delusion. A psychotic mission to resurrect the one person he could never replace. Psychiatrists determined Ed Gein suffered from severe schizophrenia, extreme isolation, delusional attachment to his mother, hallucinations, identity confusion. His mental state was so fragile that he struggled to distinguish fantasy from reality. He believed he could bring his mother back, or at least create a version of her to live with. His crimes were not rooted in malice, but in madness. A complete break from reality. In 1958, Ed Gein stood trial for the murder of Bernice Worden. He was found mentally incompetent and committed to a psychiatric institution. In 1968, after improving under treatment, he was deemed fit for trial. But experts unanimously agreed he was legally insane at the time of the crimes. Gein spent the rest of his life at Central State Hospital and Mendota Mental Health Institute. He died in 1984 at age 77. Shortly after Ed's arrest, the Gein farmhouse mysteriously burned down. Some believed it was arson. Others saw it as justice. When asked about the fire, Ed simply said, "Just as well. The land was cleared." Nothing remains today. But the legend endured. People flocked to Plainfield to buy anything connected to Ed Gein. His car, the very one used to transport bodies, was sold and used by a carnival sideshow as a tourist attraction. Locals were furious, but curiosity prevailed. The world was shocked, and morbidly fascinated. Ed Gein became more than a criminal. He became a cultural phenomenon. Ed Gein's crimes inspired Norman Bates, Psycho Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill, The Silence of the Lambs. Writers used elements of Gein's isolation, his attachment to his mother, and his morbid creativity to shape some of the most enduring horror villains of all time. Gein's story blurred the line between true crime and horror fiction, forever changing cinema. Ed Gein wasn't a serial killer with dozens of victims. He wasn't a mastermind. He didn't stalk major cities. He was simple, quiet, harmless looking. A neighbor. A handyman. A babysitter. That's why Ed Gein horrifies us. He shows that true darkness doesn't always come from the shadows. Sometimes it grows slowly, quietly, behind the closed doors of a lonely farmhouse in a town that never suspected a thing. Today, nothing remains of the Gein farm. Just an empty field and memories too painful for Plainfield to fully confront. But the story persists, a chilling reminder of how isolation, trauma, and untreated illness can twist a human mind beyond recognition. This is more than a story of crime. It's a story of mental collapse, community shock, and the monsters that grow in silence.